And so, and I wasn't allowed to drive. My job had restricted me. I had no money. And so I ended up going to some classes like cancer and relationships. Um, that one happened to be all men. Um, so it helped. That helped to have it, not have to be as emotionally vulnerable in front of women. Call it my Hispanic upbringing, but that helped. That's just the honest truth. I went to a parenting class of how to deal with it with my daughter, because, and the very first thing they said in the class, is like, you don't want to tell your kid that this is a boo-boo, because that's a common word that you use for their things, and that's exactly what I've been saying to my daughter this entire time. Like, hey, your dad's just got a boo-boo in his brain. It's okay. And, because there was only so much I could hide it, because I literally have a gigantic scar on the side of my head, and she'd seen all that, and she knew that I couldn't drive. And so no matter what, even if I had tried to hide it, that was minimal. And so I went to that and those kind of things, and we had to do little things, because it was just me and her for a bit. I would end up having a cousin come live with us just for safety, but we would do things like seizure drills, where I would collapse and she, and she would find my phone and pretend to call 911 and say, my dad's having a seizure, here's my address. And that was, very emotionally tough to watch. Just, just to watch her do that. And I would actually have seizures every few months for a while. Somehow we ended up having to play with 4 different medications and different quantities, but it would be the better part of 3 years before I'd stop having seizures. And life was kind enough to where it never once happened in front of Kiana. But there was one time where it happened in the middle of a run. I was out in the middle of a run and I collapsed. And they happened to be in the lead that day, but the guys behind me just found me on the grass in front of a yard. There was one time where I was laying down and I had a sense of when it was coming on. Always after the first one, I kind of had an idea of what it felt like. There was one time where I was in bed and I'm like, well, that's convenient. And, I think that was the only convenient seizure I had. But and there were MRIs and tests. I think it was slightly over 2 years before I'd have a full month without a medical appointment. And I still remember that first month that I didn't have a medical appointment. I was like, wow, that was a weird month, and after the seizures stopped and the medication stabilized, and we went from MRIs every 2 months, every 3 months, every 4 months, to every 6 months. And it was an odd feeling to go from medical appointments being not happening regularly. Somehow, even though that was most of my life before, when they stopped being regular occurrences, I was like, well, that feels weird. I didn't have to go to the doctor this month. You accept the absurd as normal, as opposed to when you get back to normal as normal.